We found out my mother-in-law lost $250,000 to some dude she never even met in real life. And I need you to understand something right now. The money was not even the part that messed us up the most. My name is Lisa. I've been married to my husband, Marcus, going on 4 years now. And up until about 18 months ago, I genuinely thought I hit the jackpot when it came to mother-in-laws. I know that sounds wild. I know most women got a whole entire situation when it comes to their husbands. Mama, but Diane was not like that at all. Diane was warm and real, and the type of woman who remembered how you took your coffee and actually listened when she asked how you were doing. She called me her daughter. Not her daughter-in-law, her daughter. And the way she said it, you could tell she was not just being nice about it. Marcus was her only child. His dad passed away 7 years before I ever came into the picture. Heart attack. Fast and way too soon. The kind of loss that does not go away, it just becomes part of who you are. After that, it was just the two of them. Marcus and Diane holding each other down through everything. When me and Marcus got married, Diane cried through the whole ceremony. Not little cute tears either. Full-on ugly crying the whole way through. At the reception, she grabbed my face in both her hands and told me she had been praying a long time for somebody to love her son the way I did. I lost it right there with her. We were both standing in the middle of that reception, straight ugly crying and cracking up at the same time, and Marcus snapped a picture of us and made it his phone wallpaper. That picture stayed there for 3 whole years. I'm telling you all of this so you really get what we lost. Because this was not just about the money. We lost something that felt real and solid and like it was always going to be there. And that kind of loss does not show up in any bank statement. Anywhere. The first red flag popped up maybe 2 years ago. Diane had always been that woman who stayed plugged in. Church friends, neighborhood friends, girls she had been kicking it with since back in the day. She was never the type to just sit in the house alone. That was not her. But around 2 years ago, she started pulling back from all of that real slow. Stopped showing up to church like she used to. Ghosted her weekly lunch with her girls. When Marcus called, she was always caught up with something, but she could never really explain what. Just busy, just tired. Just got some things going on. We figured it was grief creeping back up on her. The anniversary of Marcus's dad passing came around that time every year. We gave her space because we thought that was the right thing to do. What we were actually doing was giving her room to walk straight into the worst situation of her life. About 14 months ago, I was over at Diane's house helping her go through some paperwork. She hated dealing with bills and documents, and I never minded helping her out with all of that. She was in the kitchen cooking while I sat at her dining room table going through a stack of envelopes. That is when I saw it. A bank notice just sitting right there in the pile like it was nothing. I picked it up without even thinking twice. My eyes went straight to the number at the bottom. $11,000. I just sat there for a second. I knew Diane had her savings straight. Marcus had mentioned it before. Nothing specific, but enough that I knew. She was good. His dad had left her with a paid-off house and a solid retirement fund. She should not have been sitting at $11,000 total. Not even close to that. I told myself maybe this was just one account. Maybe she had others. I put the paper back in the pile and I did not say a word to her that day. But I could not shake it. I told Marcus that night. He got real quiet the way he does when something is eating at him more than he wants to let on. Said he would look into it. Called Diane the next day and casually brought up her finances. She told him everything was good. Told him not to stress about it. We were stressed about it. 2 weeks later, Marcus sat down with her for real. Asked her straight up if she was straight financially. She said yes. He asked her if anything had changed with her accounts. She paused. Just a little too long. Then she said no. Everything was fine. It was not fine. Not even a little bit. Marcus eventually pieced the whole thing together, and when he came home that evening and sat down across from me at our kitchen table, he looked like something had been hollowed out of him. He slid his phone across the table to me. I looked at the screen. $250,000. Gone. Sent out in chunks over 14 months to an account tied to some man named Robert who Diane had met on a social media app for people over 50. A man with a profile picture of a good-looking silver-haired doctor. A man claiming he was working overseas. A man who had been telling Diane he loved her for over a year and just needed some help to get back home to her. A man who was not real. Not even close to real. I sat at that table for a long time without saying one word. Then I thought about that. Bank notice. $11,000. That was what was left of everything she had worked. Her whole life to build. We decided we were going to sit Diane down the very next evening. Together. Calm. With everything printed out right in front of her. We were not going over there to come for her. We loved that woman. We just needed her to see what was really going on. We thought the second she saw the proof she was going to be devastated. We thought she was going to fall apart and we were going to be right there to catch her. We were dead wrong about that. We sat down across from Diane at her own kitchen table and laid everything out right in front of her. The transfers, the fake profile, the real doctor whose photos Robert had stolen to make himself look legit. We put every single thing on that table. She looked through all of it. Then she looked up at us. And told us we had it all wrong. Said Robert was real. Said we were just trying to control her life. Said she was a grown woman who knew the difference between a real man and some fraud. Said he had already warned her that people were going to try to come between them. She slid every single paper back across that table. Then she said something that has stayed with me every single day since. She looked dead at Marcus, her only son. The boy she raised by herself after his daddy died. The man who had his father's eyes and her laugh and who loved her more than she probably ever fully realized. And she said, I think y'all need to go ahead and get out of my house. Marcus did not move for a long time. I watched something shift in my husband's face right then that I had never seen before in 4 years of knowing him. And I hope I never see it again. We got up. We grabbed our papers. We walked to the front door. Right before Marcus stepped outside, he turned around and looked back at his mama one more time. She was already on her phone. 3 weeks after Diane told us to get out of her house, she called Marcus at 2 in the morning. He grabbed his phone off the nightstand half asleep, and the second he heard her voice he sat straight up in that bed. I could hear her through the phone from where I was laying. She was not crying. She was not upset. She was calm in a way that felt off. The kind of calm that sits on top of something much bigger underneath. She told Marcus she needed $10,000. Said Robert had an emergency. Said he was stuck overseas and his account had been frozen and he just needed this one last thing and then he was coming home to her for good. She said she would pay us back. She said she just needed her son to trust her on this one thing. Marcus sat on the edge of that bed with his phone pressed to his ear, and he did not say anything for a long time. Then he said no. Diane hung up. We lay there in the dark for a long time after that, neither one of us saying anything. I reached over and put my hand on Marcus's back, and I could feel the tension in him like a cord pulled too tight. He did not cry that night. Marcus is not a man who cries easy. But I felt something in him that was worse than crying. Something quiet and heavy and lost. I did not sleep at all. The next morning, Marcus called his mom back. She did not pick up. He called 3 more times that day. Nothing. He drove over to her house that evening and knocked on the door for 10 minutes straight. Her car was in the driveway. The lights were on inside. She did not come to the door. She was choosing Robert over her own son standing on her front porch. That went on for 3 weeks. Marcus calling. Diane not answering. Me watching my husband slowly come apart in that quiet way that is so much harder to watch than if he had just broken down completely. He stopped eating right. He stopped sleeping right. He went through the motions of every day, but something behind his eyes had gone somewhere else. I tried everything I could think of. I reached out to Diane's sister. I reached out to her friend from church who she had known for 30 years. Nobody could get through to her. She had cut everybody off. The only person she was talking to was a man who did not exist, sitting somewhere overseas collecting her last dollars and her whole heart at the same time. Then one morning about a month after that, 2 in the morning phone call, everything stopped. Robert went silent. No calls, no messages, no explanation. He was just gone the way these men always go when there is nothing left to take. Diane called Marcus that same day. He picked up on the first ring. He always picked up. No matter what she had done or how many times she had chosen wrong, he always picked up because that was just who Marcus was when it came to his mama. Her voice on the phone sounded like something had been wrung out of it. Flat and small and tired. In a way I had never heard from her before. She said she needed to talk to us. She said she thought maybe something had not been right about Robert after all. We went over that evening. She opened the door and I almost did not recognize her. She had lost weight. Her eyes looked like she had not slept properly in weeks. The house that had always been so clean and put together felt different, quieter, like something had gone out of it. We sat down at that same kitchen table where she had slid our papers back at us and told us to get out. She did not make excuses. I will give her that. She sat across from us and she told us everything. How she had met Robert on the app 8 months, after she had started feeling that deep quiet loneliness that she had never told anyone about. How he had said all the right things from the very first conversation. How he had made her feel seen and wanted, and like she still had something beautiful ahead of her. She said after Marcus's dad died, she had not realized how lonely she had gotten until somebody paid attention to her again. And that right there hit me somewhere I was not ready for. I looked at this woman sitting across from me. This woman who had grabbed my face at my wedding and called me her daughter. This woman who had been so warm and so present and so full of life every time I had ever been around her. And I thought about how none of us had ever once sat down and asked her how she was really doing after Marcus's dad passed. Not really, not in the way she needed. We had given her space. We thought that was love. She had been drowning in that space and we had not even noticed. I am not saying what she did was okay. I am not saying she was not responsible for her own choices. She was a grown woman and every single transfer she made herself. But I understood something in that moment that I had not understood before. Sometimes the people closest to us are disappearing slowly right in front of our eyes, and we are so caught up in our own lives that we do not see it, until something drastic happens to make us look. The $250,000 was gone. There was no getting that back. Robert had covered his tracks well enough that the chances of recovering anything were almost nothing. Diane had her house. She had her social security. She had us. That was what was left. Marcus sat across from his mama for a long time that evening without saying much. Then he reached across that table and took her hand. He said, "I am not going anywhere, Mama. I need you to know that." She broke down completely right there. I am not going to pretend that everything went back to normal after that, because it did not. Trust is not a light switch. You cannot just flip it back on because the crisis is over. There were months of hard conversations. There were therapy appointments. There were nights when Marcus was still grieving something that did not have a clean name, not just the money. The version of his mother he thought he knew. The feeling of safety he had always had around her. The belief that love was always enough to protect the people you cared about. None of that came back overnight, but Diane showed up. Every week she showed up to her therapy appointments. Every week she called Marcus just to talk about nothing the way she used to. Every week she did the small quiet work of rebuilding something that she had burned down herself. She never made excuses. She never asked us to just get over it. She just kept showing up. And slowly, real slowly, something started coming back. Not the same. I want to be honest about that. It was never going to be exactly the same, and I think we all understood that. But something real. Something that had been through the fire and come out the other side still standing. Diane lost $250,000 to a man who never existed. She lost months of her relationship with her only son. She lost a version of herself that she is never fully getting back. And she had to live every single day knowing that she had chosen a fantasy over the real people who loved her. That is not a small thing to carry. I watched her carry it. I watched it sit on her in a way that no punishment we could have given her ever would have. Some people have to lose everything before they can finally see what was real. Diane saw it, late, at a cost that should never have been that high. But she saw it. And if you are watching this right now and you have someone in your life who is pulling away and you cannot figure out why, please do not just give them space and call it love. Check on them. Really check on them. Sit down across from them and ask them how they are doing, and then wait long enough for them to actually answer. Because loneliness does not always look like someone sitting alone in a dark room. Sometimes it looks like your mother-in-law laughing at your wedding, calling you her daughter, holding herself together so well that nobody thinks to ask if she is okay. And by the time you notice something is wrong, $250,000 and a whole lot more is already gone. If this story hit you somewhere deep, share it with somebody who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to her words right now so you never miss a story like this one, and drop a comment below. Have you ever missed the signs that someone you loved was struggling right in front of you? I read every single comment, every one. This community is real and it is here for you.